Hi, this is Dr. Aaron Werner with the Independent Insights podcast, and where we had a great conversation today with Shelley Smith. She had written an article in the Review of Optometric Business about how they increased their capture rate 12%. And so we pick her brain, get some best practices, learn what they did, and review a little bit of the article. We'll link the article to the show notes. So please enjoy our conversation. And as always, if you enjoy it, share the conversation, leave a comment, subscribe, and let us know what else you'd like to hear. If you've never been to a Vision Source exchange, you don't know what you're missing. I tell people it's kind of like describing chocolate to someone who's never had chocolate. You just have to experience it to really understand how great it is. The exchange is like no other optometry event, and that's because it's full of like-minded private practice docs and staff focused on not just clinical, but the business aspect of private practices. If you are interested in joining Vision Source or learning more about the exchange, please click on the link in the show notes. Hi, I am Dr. Aaron Werner, and I'm here with Shelley Smith, who is the practice manager with Dr. Cheyenne Jones, optometrist in Effingham, Illinois. And Shelley, where is Effingham?
We are about 4 hours south of Chicago, right in the center of the state.
So nice and warm and sunny there right now in January.
I wish.
Yeah, excellent. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with the practice, where you grew up, how you got there.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Effingham. I moved away to the East Coast. I lived in Delaware for a little bit, which is where I got into the eye care business. I was 19 years old and started as a receptionist and learned all the different areas in the practice. And then I decided to come home, and I started working for Dr. Cheyenne Jones, and I've been here for right at 10 years. Actually, since Dr. Werner and I have talked last, I have been in a new role. I'm now our Director of Operations. So
Ooh.
I'm now running our main location as well as our 5 satellite locations. So very busy.
Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, and that's exciting. And what prompted this conversation is you wrote an article that was published in Review of Optometric Business, and we'll link that to the show notes for the episode. But you wrote an article that said how we increased capture rate 12%. And I don't know a single independent practice that wouldn't double take when they saw that, and immediately read the article. Fantastic, and we want to learn. So we want to know what you did, how you made that work, what the not so exciting parts of it were, because I'm sure it's work to move the needle double digits like that, and what we can learn from you. So give us a quick overview how you increased your capture rate 12%.
Yeah, we did a couple of things. The biggest being how we keep frames on our board, and how we manage those frames. We also did a facelift of our showroom and our entire building here at our main location, and slowly at all of our locations to bring them into the modern times and make them look modern. And then we have also revamped how we price patients for things and make it a little bit easier for them to understand.
Very cool. So let's break that apart in chunks. So you say you leave all the frames on the board, and I'm a 5th generation optometrist. So I remember working growing up in the back of Grandpa's practice, being told to be quiet, but then working for Dad, and frames didn't stay on the board. We took them off the board, wrapped them up in the paper with a little rubber band, threw them in a box, and the courier picked them up, and then we either pulled up a frame from understock, or hopefully the rep was coming back in soon, so we could reorder and put them back on. So the idea of leaving a frame on the board, how does that process work?
Well, whenever we first switched over to this type of process, we did it on our own. We didn't have any outside help doing it. So the biggest thing for us was determining how many board spaces we actually have. We don't just have traditional peg boards anymore. We have a lot of shelving. So determining, how many frames actually look good on a shelf, how many frames do we actually need in each of our showrooms. And then determining the selection that we need, the different price points that we need, from value to luxury, and what does that assortment look like, and then choosing the brands that best fit the needs for that. And then, of course, how do you get rid of all of the things that you have that you don't need, that don't fit into that assortment anymore, I think is the most challenging part, and usually where my opticians would get stuck, because they're like, I have one of these left, what do I do with it? And, kind of coming up with a plan of, do we mark that down? Do we use it for a second pair sale? How do we get rid of that? In some cases, 50 plus frames that we're not keeping in our new assortment, what do we do with them? So that was
So what did you do with
probably
them?
our biggest challenge. But most of the time, we did end up marking them down. Especially once we got to only 1 or 2 frames left in a line, when there's not that presence of a brand that people aren't drawn to. We use them for second pair sales a lot, which is great. We typically do 50% off second pair or something along those lines, to kind of move those a little quicker than we probably would have if we were trying to sell them full price.
Very cool. So heavy discount, try to move them, and I like the second pair. So you're still making a profit on the first pair. You're probably turning a small profit on that second pair too, but it helps you achieve your goal. And I don't know if you know Dr. Alex Martin, a good friend of mine and an optical whiz, but he's constantly harping on or preaching to me, saying, Aaron, go deep, don't go wide, go deep, and you want to be able to show a full collection of fewer brands as opposed to a scattering of lots of brands. So it sounds like what you guys did. And you said you did this before there was a more formal system in place. I know Vision Source has the Frame Dream program, but you guys were doing this ahead of time. You were pioneers in this area.
We were, but I will tell you, Frame Dream makes it a whole lot easier. It takes a lot of the thinking out of it, and also just the ordering process with Frame Dream is so much smoother than having to try to order from multiple different manufacturers every day to get those frames in for your patients. It's definitely an improvement.
Very cool. Well, we like improvements in systems for those of us that don't have a Shelley to run a system like this. I imagine too, and I've seen this in our practice because we do something similar, and we're very much involved in Frame Dream. But we found, and I'm curious if you do too, that our cash flow is easier when you're constantly reordering what you're selling, as opposed to the large ebbs and flows of big orders once the rep came in, and then the valleys of selling through everything and then having to reorder again.
Yes, definitely. I think the biggest thing for us, we are fairly rural, so our reps don't come every 6 to 12 weeks. It's more like every 6 months for some of them.
Okay.
That are going to come and see us. So, if we ordered a whole bunch of understock and, ordered duplicates of what they think the best-selling frames are going to be, they could be wrong, and then we have 3 of the same frame that nobody wants. Or, all of the best sellers are gone, and we're waiting, 6 more weeks before they come back to reorder more for us. Another thing is, while I see myself as an optical expert, I'm not a fashion expert. I'm not an expert in what's going to sell the best. So I don't think it's the best thing for me to be picking out the frames. I would have a hard time picking out a frame for an 85-year-old man without him telling me what I want. So having the expertise of either a rep or, in our case, Frame Dream, giving us that best selection and always having it has been a huge help.
Yes, I agree 100%. I'm definitely not a fashion expert like you, although I'm sure you do much better than I do. But I've got teenagers and I see what they wear, and they and I don't agree on what looks good. So I am in no way ready or qualified to pick out what they want to wear. So I agree. It defaulted to the experts, and because it's not about us, it's about them. And if we take care of them, then they'll be able to take care of us. So you've got a system of keeping the frames on the wall, which eliminates a lot of the understock, if not all of it. So it controls your inventory cost. You've got your best sellers on the wall because you can't sell what you don't have. It's another Alex Martinism that he has preached to me. And you show a lot better. I'm sure that it's your case, and it's probably the same in ours, or it is the same in our office. I'm assuming it's the same in yours, where I've got one or two frames that do the majority of the work for that brand, but it's how the whole brand is displayed and showed that sells the brand.
Most definitely. I think what you said earlier about going wide is exactly the right thing. And for like you and I both said, Frame Dream kind of does that for us.
Oh, very cool. So you also, in your article, you talked about how you gave a facelift to your optical, a little bit of a makeover, and but you threw a number in there and you said it was about 15,000, which was less than what I would have expected. I would have expected a little bit of a higher number when I consider a full facelift. So how did you do it for that relatively inexpensive cost, and what did you do?
Well, our doctors are very handy, and one of our doctor's wives is actually a designer, so she designed everything, and they did most of the work themselves. So they took a lot of ideas from publications and places that they've been to kind of design what they wanted everything to look like, and then they actually built a lot of our displays themselves. They did our new flooring themselves. So we thankfully, and honestly, they did a lot of this during COVID whenever we were mostly closed, if not all the way closed. So they took advantage of time that would otherwise have been completely wasted to do all of this. And they painted, they literally did all of the work themselves, and that was the only way that we were able to do that at such a low cost. But it has made a huge difference. Our main building was built in the early 2000s, so we were definitely due for a facelift, and it just looks so much more modern, and just the displays are, more what people expect to see in a higher end retail store. So I think people are more comfortable looking around. It's more, more of a shopping experience for them, especially for people who are just coming in off the street and not necessarily here for an exam first. It just has a much nicer feel, and now it's a place where you expect to spend a little bit higher dollar for a pair of glasses.
Yeah. Well, it transforms where the environment they're in, and in our environments
most definitely
affect our emotions, and our emotions help us to either spend or not spend. That's fantastic use of time, and when it could have been down, and a little finding the silver lining during COVID in the downtime. I've found as well that practices that even just put a fresh coat of paint up, that changes a whole feeling of an office. We had one consultant once tell us to constantly touch up things with paint, little markups and scuffs on the wall. One, to keep it looking clean, but two, that smell of paint tells people that you care and you're constantly staying on top of things.
Yes.
It's that new smell.
Yes,
so,
definitely.
Very cool.
We have multiple locations, so that's something that we're constantly doing. Especially as we add new locations, looking for ways to freshen up. We are almost always in a state of one of our offices is getting some kind of facelift in some way, whether the exam lanes are being painted or we're doing something in our showrooms. So we're very familiar with kind of keeping up with that kind of thing. And I think you're right, just the smell and seeing people care about their building is huge to patients.
Yeah. Well, I love that. That's a cultural a culture rather that your practice has instilled, that we're always updating, we're continually modifying and transforming and changing. And my guess is that carries over to the clinic side as well. You're probably staying on top of the latest ophthalmic lenses, the latest contact lenses, the latest technology. So it doesn't just stop at paint and displays, but it carries through the whole culture.
Definitely. It definitely does. You know, anytime there's something new, we're at least going to learn about it if we're not going to implement it. Our doctors are very big on the technology side. You know, we always want to show that we have the best technology. We're going to provide that for our patients. And, you know, even staff training, making sure that the staff understands how to talk about these things and is excited about it just as much as the doctors are is very important to us.
Or perhaps even more important because they talk to patients sometimes more than the doctors do. But let's talk about staff. So we've got a few minutes left. You now oversee 6 locations, the main and 5 satellites.
Correct.
Is that correct? Which is a handful of staff. And if you're anything like the rest of us, there's probably some staff turnover. So you've for sure got your tenured legacy staff members, but probably lots of new staff, and got to get them trained, got to get them up and running. So when it comes to the optical, how are you getting someone who's, you know, knows glasses, worn glasses, but doesn't know the back end of glasses and certainly doesn't know the nuances of all the insurances? How do you get them up and running as quick as you guys do?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, we're part of Vision Source. They have a huge amount of resources for just that. We've always been a huge user of Vision Source Learning, and now the update has made it even easier and better to use. I've actually already had one new optician go through our new hire optician training with the Leonardo platform being Vision Source Learning now. And it was absolutely amazing. He was, I don't know if this is just because of Leonardo or because I'm just that good, but he got up and running and saw his first patient on his own after 2.5 weeks of training. So
wow.
Not only is it the Leonardo platform, but using another tool that Vision Source has, which is Vision Source Max, takes a lot of the insurance learning out of the equation, at least at the beginning. They just have to understand how to read a benefit sheet, but not have to understand how to do the math behind it. So that is incredibly helpful. And it also just speeds up the process for the patient so much that it just really helps opticians be able to connect with their patient more, even when they may not be an optical expert yet.
Yeah. So, no, very cool. I love hearing that. And yeah, Vision Source Learning is fantastic, and moving it over to the new platform with Leonardo, the way to engage with the same material, but the engagement is a lot neater. Plus, we have all the additional benefits of the Leonardo courses. So yeah, that's adult learning. That's the way that we learn now. You know, I don't open a book; I look at YouTube, and my kids don't even look at YouTube hardly. They look at TikTok to teach them. So being able to learn on that type of platform is fantastic. And I think we need, you know, advanced degrees to understand some of the managed vision care calculations. So having a tool that lets us be with the patient instead of the calculator and the notepad is super helpful. And I mean, getting somebody up and running on their own in 2 weeks is fantastic, because it's a lot of time when you got to pull trainers and other people.
Definitely. Now, I won't say everything was perfect, but, you know, he has progressed so much since then and is absolutely fantastic. And I do attribute that success to a lot of the Vision Source tools that we have available.
So, very cool. And you mentioned that by using these tools in your article, that you saw an increase in multiple pair sales. Why do you think that is?
I really think the biggest the best way to get a multiple pair sale is to have a connection with the patient, and asking the right questions to the patient and being able to have a conversation around their answers and telling them, oh, I have this great product that you probably didn't even know you needed, but I'm going to make it sound so awesome and explain to you how it's going to benefit you that you just can't resist. And if you don't have an inviting space, if you don't have the knowledge of those additional products, and if you don't have, a way to give them the information in a quick, efficient way, and by that I mean pricing information, you're probably not going to capture that sale. But if you put all of those things together and you have all of those things, a patient or any person, think of anything that you want to purchase, you're probably going to be way more likely to go ahead and pull the trigger and make that purchase. Whereas if you have, 5 minutes while somebody's trying to figure out the price of something to think about it, you're going to much more likely at least walk away because you don't want to spend that money. So I think just kind of the psychology behind sales, but also giving somebody something that we truly know is going to benefit them and make their lives better and being able to convey that is how we increased our multiple pair sales so much.
I've got goosebumps. I don't think I've heard a better summary of what it takes to help patients and to help them understand what they need and to close the sales. And obviously, you're doing something right because they trust you enough to recognize that one pair of glasses just doesn't do the job. So, Shelley, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for writing your article. Again, we're going to link that to the show notes on how you increased your capture rate 12%. Thank you very much for your time today, and look forward to hearing more about what you're implementing and successes so we can continue to learn from you.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.